Good day, grade 8 learners, and welcome to our mathematics lesson. My name is Mshumayeli Nyati, and this lesson is proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education. We are still looking at integers, where we expect that by the end of this lesson, you should be able to do addition and subtraction with integers. In our previous grades, as well as previous lessons, we looked at the calculations with all numbers. We also looked at integers. It is not the first time that we are introduced to integers. So before we start our lesson, I would like us to do the following baseline activity, which will help us remember some of the things that we learned and also prepare us for the lesson ahead. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that. When we come back, we'll go through it together. Thank you. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Now let's go through our baseline activity together. Remember to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. Right. We've been asked to write each of the following as a positive or negative or number. Right. Let's start with number 1. A loss of 450 rand. The word loss. If you are talking about loss, what are we referring to? Is it a negative or a positive number? If you are talking about loss, it means it is a negative. So it's a loss of 450 rands. You are supposed to write it as a negative 450 rands. Right? And then number 2, we do have 150 meters above sea level, right? If you're talking about something which is above, right? Is it negative or positive? It is positive. And with a positive, we don't normally show the sign there. We leave it as it is, right? And then question 3, it's 12 degrees Celsius below 0. 12 degrees Celsius below 0. Right. If the temperature is below 0, it will be what? It will be minus or negative. So it's negative 12 degrees. And then lastly, a profit. If you're talking about a profit, you will have gained something, right? So which is positive. So a profit of 3,800 rands. So you simply write it as 3,800 rands. Remember, you're supposed to write it as a whole number, right? For those who need to write corrections, I'm going to give you a minute to do that. When we come back, we'll continue with our lesson. Thank you. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Now let's continue with our lesson. Right. I would like us to have a look at the following example, 3 plus 2. Right. We are going to be using a number line. We're going to be using a number line. As shown below, there we have our number line. No, it's not the first time that we are seeing a number line, right? We do have our 0 there, right? To the left of 0, we do have negative numbers. And to the right of 0, we do have positive numbers. And as you go to your right, the numbers are increasing or ascending. And as you go to the left, the numbers are descending or decreasing, right? So here, using a number line, when we are adding 3 plus 2, we start at 3. We start at 3, right? Since we are adding a positive number, right, we move 2 units to the right. 1, 2, which then gives us 5, right? We have moved 2 units to the right, which gives us 5. So we end up at 5. So we can say that 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. That is using the number line. Right, let's continue with our lesson. Without a number line, when adding 2 positive numbers, the result is positive. Right, when adding 2 positive numbers, the result is positive. So you simply add the numbers. For example, what we did in our previous example there, 3 plus 2 gives us 5. 3 plus 2 gives us 5. Now, I would like us to add the following. 3 plus negative 2. 3 plus negative 2, using a number line, we start at 3. And then move 2 units to the left. Why do we have to move 2 units to the left? Because of this negative sign there, right? The negative sign there tells us the direction we are moving, right? If we were adding a positive number, we were going to move to the right. But then if we are adding a negative number, it means we have to move to the left. So we start at 3 and then move 2 units to the left. You see, we move 2 units to the left and end up getting 1. So we end up at 1. 3 plus negative 2 is equal to 1. That is when using a number line. Right. Don't forget to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. There is another method which I'm going to show you, right? Which is not using a number line. For now, let's continue and do another example. We do have 4 plus negative 5. Using a number line, we start at 4, then move 5 units to the left. Right. We are adding, yes, but the direction is determined by the number we are adding. It is a negative number. If we are adding a negative number, it shows that the direction, it shows that we have to move to the left. So we start at 4, and then we move 5 units to the left, and then we end at negative 1. So we end up at 4. So we can say 4 plus negative 5 is equal to negative 1. That is when we are using number lines. Without a number line, we can summarize this as follows. Right. I'm going to explain this in detail. Right. When adding a positive number and a negative number, regardless of the order, the result will have the sign of the biggest number, ignoring signs. I'm going to give you some examples there so that you understand better. Right. You subtract the numbers, ignoring signs, and then write the sign of the biggest number in ignoring signs once again in front. For example, right. Let's have a look at this last example which we did. It is 4 plus negative 5. Using a number line, we got negative 1. Right. So here what we are saying is that if you don't have a number line, if you are, when adding a negative and a positive number, right, the result, which is the answer, will have the sign of the biggest number. So what we need to do, if we've got 5, 5 plus minus 4 plus minus 5, you subtract the numbers, right? You ignore the signs, then subtract the numbers, and then your answer will have the sign of a bigger number, right? The sign of a bigger number, ignoring the signs. If you check here, 4 and negative 5, which number is bigger if you are ignoring the signs? If you are ignoring the signs, the number which is bigger is 5, right? So we know that after doing our subtraction, our answer will have the sign of this bigger number. So you might as well say 5 minus 4 is equal to 1, but then at the end, you need to write the negative number. Right? You need to write the negative sign on the answer there. So that's what we meant there, right? We are going to do a lot of those examples so that you understand much better. But here's another example there where we subtracted negative 2 from 3. It was 3 plus negative 2. Right. If we check these two numbers, which number has got a greater numerical value? Ignoring the signs, it is 3. Right. So then from there, we subtract the numbers ignoring signs. Right. We subtract the numbers ignoring signs. If we subtract the numbers ignoring signs, it is 3 minus 2, you get 1. But then your answer must have the sign of the number with a greater numerical value, which is 3. So our answer will be positive. So 3 minus 2 will be equal to 1. So that's what I wanted you to note that, right? Now, I'm going to do another example, right? I'm going to do another example, but this time we are going to be adding two negative numbers. But using a number line, we start at -4, right? We start at -4, which are given there, right? But now, what are we adding? We are adding -5, which means what? Which means we have to move 5 units to the left, which means we have to move 5 units to the left. So if we've got -4, then move 5 units to the left, what are we going to have? We are going to have -9. That will be our answer, right? If you move 5 units to the left, you're going to get -9. So we end up at -9. So in other words, -4 plus -5 is equal to -9. Without a number line, when adding two negative numbers, without a number line, when adding two negative numbers, the result is negative, right? You add the numbers. You add the numbers, ignoring the signs, and then write the negative sign in front to indicate the negative result. Together. Here is -5 plus -4, right? So if you ignore the negative signs and add these two numbers, which is 5 plus 4, you are going to get what? 9. But we know that these are negative numbers, so our answer should be negative. Are we together? That is another method that we can use if you are not using a number line, because you'll notice that as we progress, you'll be asked to do calculations with bigger numbers that you can't represent in a number line. So now I'd like you to do the following class activity, right? Being guided by the number line or the other method which I've just shown you, right? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. When we come back, we'll go through it together. Thank you. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Remember to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. Now let's go through our class activity together. Right, what did we say? If you are not using a number, right? If you are adding a positive and a negative number, what do? You subtract the numbers, right? And then your answer will have the sign of the number, of the bigger number. That's what I'll say. But the bigger number, if not considering if we are ignoring the signs. Are we together? If we are ignoring the signs, like in this case, 5 and 2, which one is the bigger number if you're ignoring the signs? It is 5. And 5 is positive. Right? So if we subtract 5 minus 2, our answer will be 3. And the answer will have the sign of the bigger number when ignoring the signs. Together. So 5 plus minus 2 will give us 3. Right. And then we move on to number 2. Right. Once again, in this case, we are adding a positive and a negative number. Right. If it's like that, what do? We subtract the number. But then our answer will have the sign of the bigger number when ignoring the signs. So if you check these numbers 3 and 5, which number is bigger if you are ignoring the signs? It is 5. So, and 5, which sign does 5 have? It's negative. So we know that if we subtract, our answer will have the negative sign of 5. So if 5 minus 3, we are going to get 2. But our answer must have that negative sign of 5. So it's going to be negative 2. Right. You can actually prove this using number lines as well. Right. Then we do have number 3, negative 9 plus 5. We still apply the same method. If you are adding a negative and a positive, right, you subtract the numbers, but then your answer will have the sign of the bigger number. Right, the bigger number in this case, if you're ignoring the signs, what is the number which is bigger if you're ignoring the signs? 9 and 5. It is 9. So we know that our answer is going to be negative. Therefore, we're going to say 9 minus 5, which will give us 4. But our answer should be negative. It's going to be negative 4. Once again, you can show that if you are using your number line. Then we come to number 4. We are still adding a negative number and a positive number, right? Which number is the greater numerical value if you are ignoring signs between 10 and 12? It is 12. And 12 is positive. So it means our answer is going to be positive. So we subtract the number 12 minus 10, which will give us 2. So our answer is going to be 2. Right. And then lastly, with number 5, what did you say if you are adding negative numbers, right? If you are adding negative numbers, right, you add the numbers, right? But then you ignore the negative sign, and then add the numbers. But you know that your final answer should be negative as well. It is the same as 8 plus 7, which will give us 15. But the fact that we are adding negative numbers, our answer should be negative. So our answer is going to be negative 15. Right. Like I said earlier, in some instances, it might be difficult for you to use a number line because the numbers would be quite big, right? So now I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write corrections, right? For those who need to write corrections, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. When we come back, we'll move on to the next stage of our lesson. Thank you. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Remember to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. Right, before we move on, let me just emphasize what you could have done if you're using number line. Right, if you're using number line, you're going to start at 5 with number 1. You're going to start at 5, right? Since you are adding -2, it means -2, we're going to move 2 units to the left. And then we end at 3, which is our answer. That is for number 1 altogether, right? And then for number 2, right, we're going to start at 3. Then we count how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times until we get to -2, right? Because this was going to be 2, 1, 0, -1. That is how we're going to. This is what we're supposed to have for number 2. Then for number 3, we're going to start at -9. Right? Okay, let's just, so yes, -9. And we are adding a positive number. So we're going to move how many times to the right? 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 5. It was going to be -8, -7, -6, -5, -4. So that's why I have -4 there, right? And then with number 4, we're going to start at -10. Then we move 12 units to the right. We're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 until we end at 2, right? This one 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. Right. This is what you are supposed to get if you were using number lines. Right. And then for number 5, let me just do number 5 as well. Right. For number 5, we'll have space there. You're going to start at -8. Then you are adding -7. So what are you supposed to do? You're going to move 7 units to the left. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And your answer is -15. Right. But like I said earlier on, that it can be a bit hectic if you are using number lines. Number lines are just there to help you visualize and know how we come about with those answers. But now, if you to use this other method, you might find that it is much more easier. Right. I was just illustrating this. There is no need for you. The corrections that you have written are enough. I was just adding on to what you already know. Now, I would like us to move on to the next stage of our lesson, where we are going to be doing subtraction of integers. Right. Remember, in our first part of our lesson, here we had what? A positive sign all the time. But this time we are subtracting. Using a number line, we start at 4, then moving 5 units to the left. Right. So we have our number line there. We have the 4 there, right? But we are supposed to add 5. We are supposed to add 5, right? 5 is positive, but this negative sign, the negative sign reverses, right? Reverses the direction. Instead of going to the right, we go 5 units to the left. Instead of going 5 units to the right, we go 5 units to the left because of this negative sign. So we are going to start at 4, then move 5 units to the left, which will give us -1. Can you see that? We'll move 5 units to the left, which will give us -1. So we end up at -1. Can you see that? Using our previous method there, right? You will note that we can rewrite that as 4 plus -5. Right. 4 plus -5. If you are to simplify a question like that, it will behave exactly the same way, right? On our number line, we are going to get exactly what we did there, which will be -1. Which brings us to our method where we said if you are adding a negative number and a positive number, what do? You subtract the numbers. But then your answer will have the sign of a bigger number, ignoring the signs. If you check here, which number is bigger, 4 and 5? 5 is bigger, so we take the sign of the bigger number. But then let's continue and do another example, which is 4 minus -5. 4 minus -5. Right. Let's go to our number line. We start at 4. Right. Remember what we said. If a number has got a negative sign, we move to the left, right? But then there is a negative sign outside there, right, which reverses this sign. So in other words, it is the same as 4 plus 5. So we have to move, instead of moving 5 units to the left, because of this negative sign, the negative sign reverses, right, the sign which we have there. Remember in our previous example, we had 4, it was +4 minus plus +5. So instead of going to the right, this negative sign reversed, right, the operation, right? So we have to move to the left. In this case, we are supposed to move to the left because of this -5, but this negative sign reverses that. And then we have to move to the right, 5 units to the right. We have to move 5 units to the right. And if you do that, what do we get? Right. We get 2, 9. So in other words, what can we say? If you are subtracting a negative number, you add its opposite, right? What is the opposite of -5? The opposite of -5 is +5, which we also call its additive inverse, because if you add these two numbers, your answer will be equal to 0. Right? So if you are subtracting a negative number, it is the same as adding its opposite. There we've got 4 minus -5. So it is the same as 4 plus 5. If you are not using a number line. And also if you are using a number line, it is a negative. This negative sign reverses the effect of this minus, which will be like we are adding 5. So instead of negative and minus, bracket -5, we are going to have +5. So that's why we moved 5 units to the right. I hope you understand that. Right, learners, remember to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. So we end up at 9. Now, we need to note that subtracting is the inverse of adding. It is the inverse of adding. We mean it is the opposite of adding. So it is an opposite effect. This means that to subtract a positive integer is to move to the left. And to subtract a negative integer is to move to the right. It works exactly opposite to how adding works. So to subtract an integer is the same as to add its additive inverse, right? Or it is the same as adding its opposite, right? In symbols, we can say that if you've got a minus, in bracket, positive b, it is the same as a plus minus b. Are we together? We need to note that. That is very important. If I'm to use numbers there, it is the same as if I say 3 minus positive 5, it is the same as 3 plus negative 5. Are we together? Because we still get the same answer, which will be what? Negative 2. And then, if you are subtracting a negative number, like in this case, a minus negative b, it is the same as adding its opposite. The opposite of negative b is positive b, right? If I was using numbers, I was going to say 3 minus 5 is the same as 3 plus 5, because I'm going to get the same answer, which is 8. Right. And then the negative of a negative. Right. In general, we have already looked at it here. If you are subtracting a negative number, you are adding its opposite. So the opposite of negative a is what? Is positive a. So it's the same as negative, in bracket, minus 5. It is the same as positive 5. Are we together? Grade 8. If you've got any questions, you are free to ask. Our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. If you have a team of dedicated teachers beside, we are going to help you. Right. Now, I'd like you to apply this knowledge in doing the following class activity. Right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. When we come back, we'll go through it together. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Remember to interact with us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063-629-3655. Now let's go through our class activity together. We've been asked to calculate the following without using a calculator. Right. Number 1, we do have 2 minus -3. Right. What did we say earlier? We had this general rule where we said if you've got negative, bracket -a, right? It is the same as adding the what? Its opposite or its inverse. So we are going to get positive a, right? We say this negative sign reverses the sign if we were using number lines. So in this case, we do have -3. So the opposite of -3 is what? Is +3. So it is the same as adding its inverse. So 2 minus in bracket -3 is going to give us 2 plus 3, and 2 plus 3, you know, it is equal to 5. That is what you're supposed to get. And then we come to number 2. We do have -2 minus -3. What we have here is exactly the same as that. So we know that a negative, if you are subtracting a negative, it is the same as adding its opposite or its additive inverse. So the opposite of -3 is +3. So we rewrite that as -2 plus 3. But remember, in the first phase of our lesson, what we did say? Say if you are adding a negative and a positive number, what do? You subtract the numbers, and then your answer will have the sign of a bigger number, right? So which number is bigger here? If you are ignoring the signs, it is 3. So if you subtract these numbers, 3 minus 2, your answer is going to be 1. And it's going to take the sign of a number with a greater numerical value, which is 3. So it's going to be +1. So you're going to have -2 plus 3, which will give us 1. And we also did such a question earlier on as an example when we were using number lines, right? And then we move on to number 3. That one shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be a problem, sorry, because we have already attended to it. Right here we do have minus in bracket -a. It is the same as +a. So in this case, minus in bracket -9, our answer is going to be +9. But in this case, I just wrote it as 9 alone because there's nothing to associate it with. There's no operation. It's just as it is. So even if you write a positive, it's still correct. And then we move on to question 4. -10 minus 12. Right, these are 2 negative numbers. Right, it's the same as we are adding the 2 negative numbers. So what do? We ignore the sign and then add numbers. But we ignore the sign, the negative sign, add the numbers. But we know that our answer should be negative. We know that our answer should be negative. So our answer is going to be -22. And then lastly, 8 minus +12. We may rewrite that as 8 plus -12, which is the same as adding a positive and a negative number. What did we say about that? We said we subtract the numbers, right? And then we subtract the numbers, and then our answer will have the sign of the bigger number or the number with a greater numerical value, right? So in this case, the number with the greater numerical value will be negative 12. So our answer is going to be negative, and we are going to get negative 4. That will be our answer. Right. For those who need to write corrections, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that. When you come back, continue the answer. Thank you. Welcome back, grade 8. Remember to contact us on our WhatsApp number, which is 063 629 3655. Hope those who wanted to write corrections managed to do so. Now it's time for our homework. As I always emphasize that in mathematics, the more we practice, the better we become, and we're also going to like the subject. So I'm going to give you some time, let's say 3 minutes, to quickly copy your homework. Please do your homework. Your teacher is going to check if you manage to get everything correct. So 3 minutes, let's copy the homework. Welcome back, grade 8 learners. Now let's summarize our lesson. What is it that we learned today? We learned that when adding two positive numbers, the result is positive. You simply add the numbers. For example, 5 plus 4 is equal to 9. And then when adding negative numbers, the result is negative. You add the numbers, ignoring signs, and then write a negative sign in front to indicate the negative result. For example, negative 5 plus negative 4 is equal to negative 9. We'll also learn that when adding a positive number and a negative number, regardless of this order, the result will have the sign of the biggest number, ignoring signs. You subtract the numbers, ignoring signs, and then write the sign of the biggest number in front. We also learned that subtracting is the inverse of adding, so it has an opposite effect. This means that to subtract a positive integer is to move to the left, and to subtract a negative integer is to move to the right when using a number line. It works exactly opposite to how adding works. And then to subtract an integer is the same as to add its additive inverse. In symbols, we represented it as a minus positive b is equal to a plus negative b. Then if you are subtracting a negative, a minus negative b is equal to a plus positive b. Then we learned about the negative of a negative, that if you are subtracting a negative, in this case, minus negative a is the same as adding its opposite, or it is the same as adding its additive inverse. Until we meet again next week, where we are going to be looking at multiplication of integers as well as division of integers. Please stay safe and study hard. Lastly, we would like to thank the Gauteng Department of Education for offering us this opportunity. Goodbye and thank you.